It's been reported from Michael Shamus that Jarome Luai, as my phone turns off on us, he's reportedly set to sign a 5-year deal to play for the West Tigers in 2025. According to Shamus, the deal was worth more than $6 million. So what's that, boys? 1.2?
1.2 or a little bit more.
1.2 per season for Jarome Luai. Let's get into it. I'm sure the text line is going to be flowing as well. Remember, you can get us on the text line for the tweet on Sugar, but also I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to call in about this story as well. So 0457 736 736 if you want to have your say on Jarome Luai's potential deal, because it hasn't. This is Michael Shamus reporting it within the last 15 minutes. Call us on 1300 01 1170 here on the Mowers. Boys, let's get into it. No bigger news.
Let's put a line through the biggest stories of the week with the Mowers Week in Review.
Coal miner Jarome Luai.
Wow.
Looks like it's done.
Yeah.
A lot of people thought this was going to happen, including myself. I just couldn't see a world in which he stays at the Penrith Panthers for what was being reported, which was $850 for 2 years. Initial thoughts for Penrith Panthers, the West Tigers, and just a neutral fan.
Well, my first thoughts are that is a hell of a lot of money for, and don't get me wrong, I think Jarome Luai is a very, very, very good player. $1.2 million a year. That is some serious, because that takes him to almost the top of the leaderboard, doesn't it? What's KP on?
Yeah, KP would be 1.5, I'd say.
Okay.
You've got Cherry Evans, you've got Kalen Ponga, you've got recently Tino Fasuamalawi that would be around that mark with a player option that he had in his favour at the Titans. Jason Tomalolo's been on similar money for a long time. Nathan Cleary would be on good numbers, but Gibbo, what do you got for us?
KP $1.4 million at the Knights, Cleary 1.3 at the Panthers, Munster 1.25. Then you got Cherry $1.2 million. Luke Brooks 1.15. This is obviously from last year, and then Tommy Turbo 1.15 in and around that mark. So Jarome Luai. Oof.
The new board hasn't mucked around.
I still hate hearing those Daly Cherry Evans numbers, especially when we go out and he just never buys a coffee. But on to Jarome Luai, he is indeed in that ballpark of a Daly Cherry Evans. And when you think about that, right, let's sort of try to get our heads around that from where they are both career-wise and what they've accomplished. Jarome Luai is a 3-time premiership champion 5'8" for the Penrith Panthers. He's won at Origin level. He's taken a Samoan team to a final against Australia 2 years ago. In a massive form reversal in the way they started that World Cup, which I think is really important too, because I think a lot of people would feel the same as you, Shawnee. I think a lot of people would be apprehensive to be paying Jerome that sort of money. I think a lot of people see him as unproven. There was even that audio that came out from Ivan Cleary, which was supposed to be an in-house sponsorship meeting where Ivan indeed had his own question marks on whether Jerome could run a team. I think it is a great signing for the West Tigers. I love it for a number of reasons. They've obviously gone through the week of hell. Tigers fans, it could be the week of hell for some Tigers fans.
With the best week of their lives.
This could be the cherry on top for some West Tigers fans. They've had a complete clean out. There seems to be some flow in the direction. I love what Shane Richardson has come out and said already as the interim sort of CEO, caretaker role for the West Tigers in unison with Benji Marshall. And one thing that I think is really important, it was the show that Sats and Jace Matthews do up in Gold Coast, Sports Day. And Shane Richardson said he would not make a decision on a player if it wasn't in conjunction with the way that Benji was thinking and who he wants on his roster, it sounds like that's sensible, but for whatever reason, it also sounds like that wasn't happening at the West Tigers. In particular with the recruitment managing of Scott Fulton being involved when Benji, sort of didn't get to tick off on that.
We'll point out as well, so Chamis is also reporting, so it's under the new NRL rules. Penrith now have that a period where they can actually show intent to almost match the offer. So Jerome can essentially backflip. So it sounds like he's all but agreed to this deal. Pen hasn't been put to paper, so he can now go back to Penrith. There's no way they can come back. I think they'd already hit their ceiling. I think the number being reported was 800 or maybe 850 a year. Yep. And I think the last show we did together, I think I said if he gets offered any more money than that, he has to take it. This is a life-changing deal for him. He's already got 3 premierships in the bank, Origin wins, whatnot. It's amazing to think what it might do for his Origin career as well. Now he's not partnered with Cleary going forward. Does that change that? Probably. But there's the absolute no-brainer for him to take this deal. Whether I totally agree with it, as I said, I think he's a great player, but everything has to be done at a price. Right? It's just like buying a house. You know, all houses on the one street, they're very different, not worth the same money. It's the same as footballers. Everyone's got a ceiling and a floor for that matter as well. And I think 1.2 is very, very punchy. But then again, you look at the situation that the West Tigers are at. They needed to land some sort of big fish.
For sure.
To try and get their immediate future back on track. I know we've still got to wait another year for him to get there, but they needed to land something. And the thing about halves, I think people forget, they're bloody hard to come by.
Correct.
You know, they've got one here, very good player, but again, it's the money's a little bit of a sticking point for me. And I'd be keen to hear the listeners what they think.
Yeah,
Text in, do you think he's worth that money? And it's very subjective what a player's worth, right? So I'm sure people have got a lot of different opinions. For me, I can't get into that 1.2 mark.
Are you a Tigers fan too, did you say?
Bulldogs.
You're a Bulldogs fan, Shawnee. Yeah, I'm really interested to hear what the Tigers fans want to. So, what do you got there, Gibbo? You've got.
Well, Scope, I wanted to ask you this question because we've talked about this plenty of times, but you've been pretty adamant that Jarome Luai is a number 7. Now, spending this money on a player, besides Munster, who's in the top there, they're all halfbacks, right? Why do you believe that Luai is the man to be a halfback for a club?
So let me clarify one thing. I don't think Jarome Luai has to be a halfback as well.
Right.
I've never been big on the whole 7 and 6 thing. My example for this, and one thing that I noticed straight away when I got to Manly, and this is an example I use because I played with him for 3 years. Daly Cherry Evans, to me, at that part of his career, was a 6. He developed into a really good half and he matured, which I think Jerome can as well. I always seen Kieran as more of the halfback. Like he was more a traditional. He was pretty set to a game plan. He was more of a game manager. We had really clear structure because I played the first probably 18 months to 2 years with Kieran on the left edge. And then my last season at Manly, I flipped over to the right. And it took an adjustment because I had to learn how to play with Daly because Daly plays a little bit off the cuff. He liked to play eyes up footy, as they would say, that Joel and Fletch don't like mentioning. But yeah, he used to play what he seed down the short side, so there'd be a lot of last-minute adjustments where you'd just have to be on the run, whereas, for instance, when I'd play with Kieran, he'd tell me 2 plays before, this is what we're getting ready for. We're going to lay this part of the line. We're going to have a shot. This is what I think, and we had really detailed conversations leading up throughout the week before we'd even get to the game. With Daly, he was so relaxed, a little bit more carefree. He also had the luxury of having a guy called Glenn Stewart play outside of him,
pretty handy,
who had really good skill for the early part of his career. So going back to Jerome with all that information, there's a couple of things that I really love about Jerome. One is, despite how people view him, his lack of ego within the Penrith environment. And what I mean by that is, yeah, he's a bit rah-rah. He plays the social media villain. He gets into other players. But one thing he's never done for Penrith, which I think is a trait that is pretty rare in team sports, especially if you feel like you've got the ability to do it, is he's never overcomplicated his hand. So he basically plays 3rd string at best, maybe even 4th string when Dylan Edwards gets involved as much as he does, behind Nathan and Isaiah Yeo.
Yep.
Isaiah Yeo touches the ball more than probably any middle forward in the competition. Then Nath gets in behind there somewhere, and Jerome would pick his matchups, and he had limited opportunities, but when he did, specifically the years that he had Kickow and Crichton on that left edge, he picked his moments really well, and he never had, in my opinion, he never had an ego into, I need to touch the ball more.
Yeah.
I'm a starting 6 in the competition. I'm on this sort of money. I'm Naif's best mate. he always understood he was a team first player. They call him the chief energy officer at Penrith for the way that, again, he's a bit like, David Warner from an outsider's perspective, much maligned. But I know pretty much a lot of these people. I know people in staff or higher up in Penrith that they absolutely love Jerome. He's a team first player, super humble, family man. And if you're going to put an investment into a player in that position and that sort of money, then I think you really do have to tick all those boxes.
Yeah.
And again, I come back to the Tino situation when he re-signed for 1.5 or whatever it was reported at the Titans. Tino ticks so many boxes away from also being an elite player at his position.
Pretty clear message of how Tigers fans are feeling here on the text line from Tiger Davo. I'm really happy with the Luai signing. We needed a big fish, just as we said, and we got one. New board, new era, up the Tigers. That pretty much says it all. I think that's going to be a pretty consistent theme from other Tiger supporters here. The other thing, Sean, the other foot for Penrith, this creates a lot of headaches for them now. Jack Cogger recently just gone to Newcastle. So they've got a big hole to fill there in 2025 as well.
Yep,
well,
Gibbo.
It's funny they're going to get an old Tigers player, Dane Laurie. They get him next year, who played a bit of six towards the end of the year for the Tigers.
Yep.
And he's a Jet. But the question for Penrith is they've now lost Stephen Crichton, Spencer Leniu, and Jarome Luai, who all played for Samoa, all have a pretty good friendship connection to each other. Like, is the fabric of that club going to change with those sorts of guys leaving, do you think?
Yeah, I think it'll definitely have an effect.
Yeah.
This is the reason we have a salary cap is teams have been torn apart in years past, and it's so hard. Penrith have been in such that similar to the years of the Melbourne Storm when they were great, before the salary cap scandal, when they had to get rid of really important players, but they kept their core three.
Yep.
Up until Cooper ended up going to the Roosters, obviously. But for the most part, they kept Cam Billy and Cooper.
Yep.
And they lost guys like Adam Blair, Sika Manu, Kevin Proctor, G.I., Israel Folau. Like, people forget, they lost huge names throughout that period. But they were super successful because they were able to keep the core three that are going to the standards, the guidelines, the culture that they have at Penrith, I think is still going to be driven. And I predicted this earlier on in the year again, just like I predicted the scores at Pakistan. And
You're keeping a tally on these
yeah,
mentions?
just keep ticking.
That's three, I think.
Three?
Keep ticking away because we're only in the second hour at the moment. We've still got an hour and a half left. But I did predict this when Dylan Edwards re-signed. When it was when it came out that he had agreed upon to re-sign at Penrith, I couldn't envision a world in which they were able to keep Dylan Edwards and Jerome Luai after they'd already done deals for Nathan Cleary, Isaiah Yeo, and James Fisher-Harris in particular.
And this is what the really, really shrewd clubs do, and the Melbourne Storm have been the shrewdest of them all for the longest of them all as well. They just don't pay, or what you said, they keep their core together no matter what, and the only way you can do that is by not paying overs for people outside of that core group.
Yep.
There's, without a shadow of a doubt, the group they have to keep together at all cost. Dylan Edwards, Nathan Cleary, obviously, and Isaiah Yeo. And if they keep those three together, that spine, I know it gets overused a bit. Also got pretty handy number 9 in Mitch Kenny going around. They sort of found him. He'd be on lowish money, I'd suggest. For sure. For probably his ability as well. And I think a question's going to have to be asked for him. I'm not sure where his contract situation is, but he'll be asking big dollars in 2 or 3 years' time as well. I
think he was the same year, mate. Yeah, I looked at the structure of their teams leading into it, and before the halfway point when Dylan Edwards got done, I believe the biggest names on there were Taruva, Mitch Kenny, Jarome Luai, and Dylan Edwards.
Okay, so there you go. But I think as long as they keep that core three together, they're going to be a very big team for a long time.
We've got some text coming through there, Gibbo.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a big signing, and the Tigers from a week from hell, I guess, there's a bit of the bright shoot amongst it all, right?
Yeah, for sure. Do you want to keep getting into those news through the Tigers? So let's get into again. This starts off with the Tigers at the start of the week. The majority of the board had been dismissed. We mentioned it at the top of the story with the Jarome Luai news when I was talking about Shane Richardson. He's now the interim CEO. Yep. He's taken over. Then after that, there's been going this ongoing drama with David Nofaluma. as well. So now that we've sort of gone through this and Jarome Luai, do you think the Tigers are coming out on the other end of it now, boys?
Well, I think there's light at the end of the tunnel for Tigers fans, and that's probably all. And I know a few of them, and I'd hate to. What's the record? How many years in a row they haven't played finals now? Is it?
I think it's 10 plus.
Yeah.
It's way more than that. So
2010 was it?
maybe something like that. It's a long time ago, whatever the number is. So and when you're in that situation, all you can ask for is a bit of hope. And there's a text here, and I completely agree with old Lionel here. As a dog supporter, I'm stoked the Tigers got Jerome. We dodged a bullet. I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't say we dodged a bullet because I think, as I said, he's a good player. But the worry for me was the Bulldogs were going to fork out $1 million for him, which I don't think you can do.
I don't think he was ever properly on their radar, to be fair.
Yeah.
I don't think he was ever going to be. I think it was West Tigers and the Dragons, to be fair.
Well, those are the clubs who are looking at players, boys. Now another half who's reportedly signed a real big deal up at the Broncos. But can you get your thoughts here? Ezra Mam, reported by Pete Badell on Sports Day, 4-year, $3 billion contract extension. Like it? Don't like it?
Yeah, love it. I assumed this was going to happen as well. Unlike Jarome Luai, Ezra Mam hasn't won competitions yet. The Brisbane Broncos, they're in a window. I dare say him and his little mate at the back there, Reece Walsh, would have had conversations. Once Paddy got done, once Payne got done, all right, they've had to let go of a veteran, and Kurt Capewell, who's gone over to the Warriors immediately, still had a year on his contract. That would have coincided with Ezra Mam getting done, and they'll be working on Reece Walsh long term.
Only 20 years old, Ezra Mam. I don't know why, but he feels like a much. I think is it the way he plays? He just feels he's got a pretty sort of mature head about him.
Yeah, he's coming. Well, you're right, Sean. He's come into the competition and he's played. Just similar to Jerome, like plays his role at a really high level, and it seems like he's got a fair bit of time on his hands.
Yeah, and we'll go down in history, I think, as the best grand final performance, A, in a losing team, and B, to not win the Clive.
Now, boys, on the Broncos, they played a grand final this year, 2024. Do you think they can go one better?
For sure.
Yep.
They're definitely going to be there in the markets. That'll be reflected with Sportsbet for sure with you, Shawnee.
Second favourites behind Penrith. The one thing that not worries me, but I think we have to factor in is they had such a good year. I can't see where the extra gear comes from. I think they played at their absolute level for most of the year, and they were, for me, the best team by a country mile to watch in 2023. I don't know where that extra level goes to, or where. I mean, it might be that Penrith come back to the field a touch again, and that probably there's the gap for you there. But they just had such a good year. Everyone had a lot of career years as well. Reece Walsh probably had a career year in his short career so far. The other thing, A-Ray is getting another year older. There's a few things that don't worry me. They're going to be right up there.
Yep.
But where does that extra gear come from?
Yeah, I'm with you, mate. Like, I've got concerns on a lot of teams because I started doing, in preparation for the potty to start the year next year, I started looking at the teams and I started to try to scope it out to start the season. And you think about the teams that didn't play finals footy last year: North Queensland Cowboys, Parramatta Eels, Titans, the Rabbitohs specifically, and another team in the Manly Seagulls. Tommy Turbo has shut down talks that there was chat around him being moved into the centres, and he shot that down. He wants to play fullback. Again, I'm a little bit conflicted with this one. I can see the pros and cons for sure to him playing centres, but what about you boys? Do you think I'll throw out my suggestion on it, and I again sort of tossed this up at the back end of last year. The first time I heard it, I was massively against it, and the more I think with the latest injury, and I'm thinking long term for Manly, my suggestion was for Tommy after really strong performances from Ruben Garrick at the start of the year, and then at the back end of the year, Tolu Kola, to potentially give Tommy a 10-week period in the centres. Yeah. And that way you can get some Ks in your legs, you can get some games under your belt, with the plan to always be to change him back to the centres, to change him back to fullback after the origin period. Because my assumption would be if he was to play centres for the start of the year, he's a walk-in first centre picked for New South Wales. So he's also shot down the rumours that he he indeed wants to play Origin this year if selected. So if he is going to play centres for Origin, maybe start him in the centres for Manly, play there, get some Ks in his legs, have a really good, strong performance for New South Wales, try to get back that shield, and then shift him back with 15 weeks to go in the season or 10 weeks to go in the season, a la Kalen Ponga from this year, where he made the shift halfway through the year and still got back to it seamlessly.
I think for me, like, Manly just have to trust their medical staff, physio staff. They've got to trust Tommy himself to make the right call. And the fact that he's come out and shut this down, well, it tells me I think he's actually got faith in his body. I think, and you'd probably know, Scope, having played it, a lot of luck comes into everything in football, not just results, but injuries as well. It would be an absolute last roll of the dice for me to move Tommy away from fullback into the centres. He is an absolute world beater at fullback, of course, when he's fit. But that's like anyone.
Yeah.
And I found the chat to move to just think about moving him to the centres purely because of his body. I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah, okay.
That would be an absolute last chance saloon. We're almost talking it's either this or his career, and we're nowhere near that. He's an absolute superstar at fullback.
Well, for sure. If he's come out and shot it down, there's a part of me that thinks there's been internal discussions about it, at least.
Yeah.
Maybe the coaching staff have mentioned it to him. He's obviously going to back himself. And again, you said there's a lot of luck comes into it, but there's also, with a player of his position and the modern-day fullback, 25-plus carries, 250 metres. I didn't get injured that much, but I only had 7 carries and 60 metres. So less chance to get injured during that period and less tackles and less tax on the body, for sure.
The one thing I would say about Turbo, and we've seen it in that Origin performance, even if he is wearing the number 3 or number 4, he can still play like a fullback as well.
Yep.
So, and Sugar's got this theory about the hybrid role.
Yep.
And it's probably been, there's a lot of centres that they're much maligned for not getting their hands on the footy as probably much as they should be. You probably think about Joe Manu. I want him touching the ball as many times as he possibly can, and sometimes in games doesn't go missing, but you just want him to inject himself. Where Tommy Turbo, at the absolute elite level in Origin, was a superstar in that game because he basically played like a second fullback to Teddy. So there's no doubt if he played centre, I'm sure he'd be an absolute weapon. We've seen that, but for me, he's nothing but a fullback at Manly right now.
Yeah, for sure, and it's all happening right now, boys. Breaking news again: the Dragons have offered Addin Fonua-Blake $4.5 million over 4 years after widely reported that Dogs won't make an offer. Tigers also withdrew their offer. Shane Richardson broke that on SEN, actually. Paying over $1 million for Addin Fonua-Blake. Do you want to address this now, Gibbo, or should we get to it after the break? All right, let's get to it right now. Some more big money for a just as crucial position, I believe, in the game right now, the front row position. Addin Fonua-Blake would be 31, Gibbo. Can you check that out? He is arguably in the top 4 best front rowers in the game.
Career year.
He basically, he was the linchpin in that forward pack for the Warriors that went on a career year for himself, and then also a massive year for the Warriors. That's something we haven't seen from the Warriors in a long time.
As a Bulldogs supporter, I'm filthy that we didn't get Addin Fonua-Blake. He's the one that
so
I
you're
wanted.
the opposite with this one.
Yeah, I'm the opposite here because, and if you give me the choice between Matt Burton and Jarome Luai, same money.
Yep.
I'm picking Birdo every day of the week.
Okay.
The one thing he needs is a pack, and he hasn't had that at all. And people were talking about moving Birdo back to the centres. He was a star in the centres behind that Penrith forward pack. It's. You said before it's probably one of the most important positions of the game. I agree. And him at the Bulldogs would have looked very, very good. And I think Birdo and the rest of them would have got a lot out of that. I'm a little bit annoyed at this deal. It is big money, but I reckon I'll be happy to pay it. Yeah,
for sure. Like, you're going to get at least... He had a career year, but there's signs that for front rows in particular that they mature into the role. And some of them get better with age, and he's been relatively healthy his whole career. So if this does indeed go through, the West Tigers and the Dragons have made some big moves. So we'll have a break now, and we'll get back to more news because we've got plenty more after the break.